Journey North Coast is a very personal poem for Robert Gray, and we see this through the emotional and spiritual connection he describes to nature and its effortless beauty. The poem is about a man who was travelling on a train back from the city to his hometown. The persona constantly references to his memories, allowing us into his mind and allowing us to understand how much he has greatly missed the place that he remembers as home. An example of this is when he writes, "One of those bright crockery days," explaining he remembers those kind of days and they are familiar to him. The attitudes being conveyed throughout Robert Gray are what I perceive as very close to his religious beliefs, being a Buddhist. Buddhism is a very strong religion that respects the nature and trying to conserve it. The main attitude, though, that is seen strong throughout this poem is a significant relationship man and nature have, but it isn't portrayed as a very good relationship. His attitude makes us consider the damage man has created upon nature and how we will learn to conserve Earth's natural beauty. He does this through the use of metaphors and similes. Imagery is what this text is all about, creating a thought with the words of a light, pure, colourful emphasis on the emotional and spiritual connection he has. The contextual issues that relate very well to the timing and meaning of this poem is the 70s environmental debates. At this time in the 70s, we had completely lost sight of the natural beauty Australia had, and were more concerned with the economy state. We were more concerned with sufficient employment, sufficient income, and a sustainable economy. Gray, we can see through the text, wanted to remind us that this is what he believes to be the most beautiful thing he has seen, and if he had to keep living in the city, he wouldn't be the same sane person. He wanted us to be aware that the sadness of this situation had been caused by the greed of us. The key themes incorporated throughout Journey North Coast are very strong, and he makes these themes work effortlessly from beginning to end. One of the themes being used is the celebration of the natural world. An example in the text that supports this theme is "Down these slopes move as a nude descends a staircase, slender white gums, and now the country bursts open on the sea." This quote has incorporated a simile, referencing to an abstract painting. This could be describing that there is emerging light through the hill. He is taking great notice of his surroundings. The second theme that I believe is seen in Journey North Coast is the person's simple joy in the solitude. Solitude is the positive state of the mind where you are alone but you aren't lonely. It's a desirable state of oneself. We see his solitude when he writes, "Now the man's gone who had the bunk below me." This shows that he is exactly in the state of solitude. He isn't afraid of being alone, but in fact embraces it. I believe this poem helps support who Robert Gray is a person. The poem's outlooks and issues that are being supported throughout are very interesting from a reader's perspectives. The fact that he can still strongly support his cause on such a deep level but not force it upon us is a very effective skill. I like the way he makes it seem as though he was congested in the city, and when at home in rural Australia, he feels this is the place everyone should come to know because this was once all that we had. Although I think the poem is very effective, I would have liked to have seen the angle of the poem if the persona had become well associated with the man in the bunk below. The Meatworks is a very dramatic and very disturbed imagery style of poem, although it receives the answer at once from its readers. The Meatworks is about a man who begins working at an abattoir, but out of the sheer pleasure for money. This job becomes a way of life. He learns to accept that this is what he must do to support his wife. His disgust for the job is used through sexual imagery and many other kinds of imagery, and this is what creates such a personal level for the reader. I believe the purpose of this poem is to show that in life we do have to sacrifice to survive. The conveying attitudes that are being incorporated throughout the Meatworks is the deepful sadness that the persona's life has become. It's the realization that your life isn't just your job. He shows us towards the end of the poem that for all the bad things we come across in our lives, there is always something brighter and happier that balances it out, and this is shown with the introduction of the beach, and those startling storm cloud mountains. It's a revelation of what beautiful things we have for us out there. The contextual issues of the time Gray wrote this, I don't think were global issues but personal ones for Gray. I believe the strongest contextual influence from Gray is the major fact that he is a Buddhist, and I believe this is why there is shown so much disgust towards the abattoir. A quote that shows immense disgust is when he writes, "Around the nails, there was still blood." A Buddhist has a strict diet set eating no meat, and this could have major influence towards the imagery aspects. The entirety of the poem shows disgust and despair, although the simple fact is that he was still a major part of the economy and still needed a job. He had to do what he had to do for himself and his wife. The major theme that is seen evidently key throughout this poem is what we must do for money. It reminds us that we may have the greatest things in our lives, but a job is majority of the time not one of them. And the problem is, this is a sad reality for most. He quotes, "This frail money. To him it's nothing, but to the economy it's everything. Jobs to the majority of the economy is something that puts food on your plates, not something that brings us complete and utter joy." Another theme that Gray has incorporated throughout this poem is the realization of true beauty is all around us. We may have our down days, but a simple look outside your window, watching a bird fly past, is so joyful to some because it is all they have to look forward to in life. He uses many similes to describe the beauty he sees in comparison to what he had just witnessed. Robert Gray is a conversationist poet, and this is what I believe to be the strongest aspect of Gray's poem. It allows us as readers to personally connect with Gray and the attitudes he is conveying. I believe that this poem is extremely worthy of reading, and it can relate to everything that is occurring in our lives. It's simple, but it states the complete obvious to what we are sometimes oblivious to. He uses the imagery to convey what the disgust that he shows towards the abattoir, and I believe this is what makes us question what our thoughts are.